Okay, let's start.
Yes, sir.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nigamakalpatarorgalitam phalam sukhamgatam data dravasamyatam pibata Bhagavatam rasamalayam muhurago rasika bhuvibhavakaha. Narayanam namaskritya naran chaiva narottamam devyam saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet. Nashtaprayesha badreshu nityam Bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुलंगायते कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दिनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्री चैतन्यमीश्वरं कथाञ्चन स्मृते यस्मिन् दुष्करं सुकरं भवेत् स्मृते प्रीतं स्यात् श्री चैतन्यं नमामि तम्। Hare Krishna. So we are reading the first purport, and last class we discussed that why we should not jump to the 10th canto and the need for mode of goodness. We discussed this last class, and today we'll continue reading the purport. So we have to read from Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of Sarupa of the Lord. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam is the narration of the Swarupa of the Lord manifested by his internal potency. And this potency is distinguished from external potency, which is the manifested cosmic world, which is within our experience. Srila Vyasadeva makes it clear the distinction between the two in this shloka. Srila Vyasadeva here states that the manifested internal potency is real, whereas the external potency in the form of material existence is only temporary and illusory, like the mirage in the desert. The mirage in the desert, there's no actual water. There's only appearance of water. The real water is somewhere else. The manifested cosmic creation appears to be as reality, but reality of which it is but a shadow is the spiritual world. Absolute truth is in the spiritual sky, not in the material sky. In the material sky, everything is relative truth. That is to say, one truth depends on something else. This is cosmic manifestation results from the interaction of three modes of material nature, and the temporary manifestation has to present an illusion of reality to the bewildered mind of the conditioned soul, who appears in so many species of life, including the higher demigods like Brahma, Indra, Chandra, and so on. In actuality, there is no reality in the manifested world. It appears to be reality, however, because of the true reality which exists in the spiritual world, where the personality of Godhead eternally exists with his transcendental paraphernalia. So this is very important point, which is discussed here. There is substance, there is shadow. The material world is the shadow, and the spiritual world is the substance. So the problem with us is that we are actually considering the shadow as the substance, because the shadow in some ways resembles the substance. So therefore, we consider the shadow as the substance. Like, for example, there is a snake and there's a rope. Sometimes the rope is mistaken as a snake. People think, oh, this is not rope, this is a snake. But it is in reality, it is actually a rope. It is not a snake. But we can mistake rope as a snake when we know that there is an existence of a rope and there is an existence of a snake. When we don't know about the rope or the snake, there is no question of mistaking the rope as snake. So the real rope and the real snake is there in the spiritual world. In the material world, the snake is being mistaken as rope and the rope is being mistaken as snake. That is the problem. So here it is very clearly said, Teja varimrutam yata vinimayo yatra trisarko amrusha dhamna svena sata nirastakuhakam satyam param. Okay, so this is the two difference between these two realms. One is simply an illusory creation. And why is that illusory creation is there? The illusory creation is there because of mental speculation. Like you speculate in mind that what you want to be, and then you try to be that. Today morning in the Bhagavatam class, I was explaining. Prabhupada actually explains in the third canto of Bhagavatam that this entire material creation is a product of false ego and it exists in mental speculation only. This is the exact lines Prabhupada says. That this entire material creation is a product of false ego and it exists in mental speculation only. So why are we saying like that? Because according to our mental speculation, we are trying to take different positions. Like when I was just explaining about my own life. When I was a small boy, my mother was telling me that why don't you become doctor? I told my mother I don't want to become doctor because if I repair machines will not die. But if I repair people and make a mistake, then people will die. So better I become repair machine than I repair people. Why should I repair people and then they will die and then I will keep thinking, oh, this man died because I didn't repair him properly. Better deal with non-living things. I'll become engineer, I'll not become doctor. This is called manovritti. And when I wanted to become engineer, when I was from small town, I don't know the difference between IIT and ITI. I only know ITI. ITI means place where they learn welding, cutting, carpentry, like that. This is ITI. So I was thinking IIT means it is ITI. So I don't know the difference between IIT and ITI. So I was thinking that if you want to study engineering, you should go to engineering college. There's no point going to IIT, which I was thinking is ITI. So then I went to engineering college. I studied engineering. And then there when I went, I saw that there are a group of boys who are always talking about going to America. Their whole discussion is about how to go to America. And they are talking about some exam called TOEFL, some exam called SAT, some exam called CAT, something and all they are talking. I don't know all these things. What is SAT, what is CAT, what is TOEFL? I don't know all these things. I never considered in my life that I can go to America. For me, America exists only in the atlas. You study geography, you see atlas, you see map, and then you mark this is America. That's it. I never thought that we could go there, we could live there, we could work there. I never thought about these things. But when I went to college, I found that there are set of boys who have so much of information about America. And from first year to final year, they were just discussing that Vyasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. They are discussing only about going to America. They are not discussing about any other subject matter, that how to go to America. This is their meditation. But because for them, America was a reality. And for me, America was not a reality. Because there was no mental acceptance or rejection about America. Then when I went to college, then I made more research about America. And then I decided, okay, better not to live in that place. Better you go somewhere else. This place is not very good. According to my understanding, it was not very good. So anyway, that is also another mental speculation. So instead of going to America, I ended up going to Dubai. So I thought Dubai is a nice place. It's a Muslim country. Maybe people are conservative. It's good for me. I went. So the whole life I was living till I came to Krishna consciousness, I was living the whole life based on my mental thoughts. So this is called existence in mental speculation. Like somebody knows information about America, then he tries to go to America. and somebody knows information about Swargaloka, he is trying to go to Swargaloka. And some other fellow has information about Brahmaloka, he is trying to go to Brahmaloka. So everybody is mentally speculating as to what he should do next, and then acting as per the mental speculation, and then taking different positions as per the mental speculation. So therefore, this whole existence of 14 planetary system, it exists in mental speculation only. The different positions of the 14 planetary system is there to satisfy the mental speculation of the jiva. I am not satisfied with one head, I need 4 heads. Okay, become Brahma, have 4 heads. Or you become snake, you have 5 heads, you have 10 heads, you have 100 heads, you can have. There are different type of snakes which has many heads. So therefore, there are different type of bodies, there are different type of things, which is all based on mental speculation. And none of them are permanent, because it is all dependent on mental speculation. So there is no reality in them, there's no permanence in them. They're all catching a thought. They're not more than catching a thought. They're all simply catching a thought. So, but the Mayavadis are also saying that there is no reality in this material world. And we are also saying there is no reality in this material world. So what is the difference between us and the Mayavadis? What is the difference between us and Mayavadis? The only difference between us and Mayavadis is that the Mayavadis are saying that it is an illusion which doesn't exist. Material world is an illusion which doesn't exist. They're saying Jagat Mithya. But we are saying that it exists, but the existence is temporary. Therefore, it is called Amrisha. Amrisha means almost factual. Fact means it should be fact irrespective of any other thing. That fact should not be dependent on anything. That is fact. It should not be like, it is fact when it is like this. But in the material world, everything is dependent on something. Like, for example, some students of science, they study different laws. Like there's one law called Ohm's law. And that Ohm's law explains that current and resistance, they are inversely proportional. So in a conductor, in a good conductor of current, there's also some resistance. So how much it can conduct the current is depend on how less is the resistance. So they are inversely proportional. Current and resistance is inversely proportional. But for that, there is a condition. What is the condition? At constant temperature. If you vary the temperature, then this proportionality will not hold good. So everything is conditional in this material world. Everything is conditional in this material world. If you vary a parameter, then things will change. And this holds good to relationships. This holds good to physical laws. This holds good to everything. Even in relationship, which is like human factor, it's a relationship. Even that is conditional. If the husband takes care of the wife will take care of the husband. If the husband doesn't take care of the wife will tell, go man, why should I take care of you? So everything is conditional in this world. Everything depends upon some other thing. So therefore, this world is called as relative world. Einstein also gave one theory of relativity. Theory of relativity. Everything is related. Theory of relativity. Many of the physicists or philosophers also, because physics means studying matter. And when you study matter, you can't avoid being a philosopher, because your spirit, you are studying matter. To some extent, you have to become a philosopher. So you find all ancient physicists to be philosophers also. Anyway, the point is that there is a reality which doesn't change, which is constantly there. And then there is a reality which is always changing. The changing reality is the material world, where everything has a beginning, everything has an end. Brahma bhuvanalloke punaravartino Arjuna. Mam upetyetu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. If you come to me, then there's no question of going back. But if you are here, there's no question of staying in any place. Even if you are Brahma, you will have a long life, then we have to get kicked out. After a long life, they will kick us out. If you are small ant, we have a short life, then they will kick us out. So in any case, we have to get kicked out. That is the truth. So therefore, one should utilize this temporary position to catch that permanent position. That is intelligence. And if one does not do that, then one is confused. Muhyanti Surayaha. Great scholars, great scientists, great philosophers, they are all confused. They are confused. Why they are confused? Because they have not understood that you have to utilize this temporary position to catch the permanent position. They have not understood this. Narada Muni tells that to Vyasadeva. Hey, Vyasadeva, why are you doing this to people? You are simply teaching them to utilize temporary position to go to another temporary position. What is the use? All this karma kanda, jnana kanda, what is the use? You're simply teaching them to go from one temporary position to another temporary position. There's no use of this. Just taseva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam uparyadaha. That even if you go up, if you come down, you cannot get it. So intelligent person tries to catch that substance which cannot be got by going up and down in this 14 planetary system. So what is that substance? That substance is Krishna. This will be described in the first, is described in the first verse, is also described in the next verse. So therefore, we have to understand that this cosmic creation is a reality, but it is a temporary reality. And the spiritual world is permanent reality. So in the spiritual world, everything is absolute in nature, and in the material world, everything is temporary in nature. Even the absoluteness of the spirit is not felt because the spirit is identified with the temporary body. So the absoluteness of the spirit is not felt. And that is what happens. If you study third canto, Brahma, he creates different types of ajnana vritti. First of all, he creates ignorance. He creates ignorance. And then he creates misidentification. And then he creates attachment. And then he creates fear. And then he creates fear. That includes fear of death. Everyone is afraid of dying. But actually, we are not dying because the spirit soul has no death. But still, everybody is afraid of dying because we have identified ourselves with the temporary. So, therefore, here Prabhupada explains that Vyasadeva is making a clear distinction between these two. Tejo varimrutam yatha vinimayo yatra trisarko amrusha. This temporary reality, it looks like permanent reality. Why it looks like permanent reality? Because of the interactions of the three modes, trisarko amrusha. But there is a reality. What is that? Dhamna, Svena, his own place. Whose own place? Vasudeva, Krishna, his own place. Dhamna, Svena, Sada Nirasta Kuhakam. So that is where misery is conspicuous by its absence. There is no misery there. Sada Nirasta Kuhakam. Satyam Param Dhimahi. So that is absolute truth, which always exists. So we should meditate on that absolute truth. And what is the nature of that absolute truth? That is explained here. Prabhupada gives the example. Can you please read the chief engineer of a complicated construction?
The chief engineer of a complicated construction does not personally take in the path of construction, but he knows every nook and corner because everything is done under his direction. He knows everything about the construction both directly and indirectly. Similarly, the personality of Godhead, who is the supreme engineer of this cosmic creation, knows every nook and corner, although affairs are being carried out by demigods. Beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, no one is independent in the material creation. The hand of the Lord is seen everywhere.
Let's stop. Okay. So two important points Prabhupada discussed here. What is that? So this Jarmadya Setaha Anvayat Itaratas Chartesha Abhigya. This person who is the source of everything, what is his quality? He knows everything. He knows everything. That is his quality. Why he knows everything? Because he is everywhere. Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham. He has entered into every Paramanu and he is sitting in all these Paramanu and is seeing, hey, what is happening? What is happening? So therefore, he knows everything. He knows everything through his agencies, through his expansions, through the different demigods who are his body parts. Like what the hand is doing, I know what my hand is doing. My hand is moving. I am moving the hand. I know that it is moving. So my hand is moving and I know it is moving because it is my hand. And in case of Krishna, that hand is Indra. So what Indra is doing, Krishna knows. Just like what I am doing with my hand, I know. So Krishna knows what all the 33 crore demigods are doing. Krishna knows. So therefore, he is Abhigya. He is the one who knows everything. And he is also the object of knowledge. He is the one to be known. He is also the object of knowledge. He is the one to be known. Because by knowing him, one can know everything. Because he knows everything. So this is the formula. Like in physics, they say that when A is in equilibrium with B and B is in equilibrium with C, then A is in equilibrium with C. This formula in physics. So same way, Krishna knows everything. And if you are in relationship with Krishna, then because Krishna knows everything, you also know everything. So otherwise, we are ignorant. Otherwise, we are ignorant. We don't know what is happening with our own body also. We don't know. We are very ignorant. And he is supremely independent. Swarat. He is self-ruled. He is not dependent on anybody. And this point will be explained by Prabhupada more elaborately, that everybody else is dependent on him. But he is not dependent on anybody. That's why he is called Atmaram. He is called Atmaram. He is, everything comes from him. So therefore, everything in one sense belongs to him. So all his activities are within himself. Our activity is not within ourselves. My activity is not within myself. I am interacting with you. You are a separate person. I am a separate person. And we are using this computer, which is a separate thing. So they're all different things. And we are dependent on all these things for our interaction. We are dependent on the computer. We are dependent on internet. We are dependent on all the audience being present. We are dependent on the interaction. We are dependent on various things for this interaction. But Krishna is not like that. He is independent. He is present everywhere. He is present in the computer. He is present in us. He is present in you. And he knows that what each one of us is thinking. Very clearly he knows. So therefore, he is Abhigya and he is Swarat. He is completely independent. Completely independent. And how he is completely independent? Because he is not dependent on anyone. Everything has come from him. The material world, spiritual world, everything has come from him. So all his interactions are simply his interactions within himself. They are interactions within himself. So sometimes he declares dependence. Sometimes he declares dependence. Krishna declares that, oh, what can I do? I am dependent on my devotee. I can't do anything. Says, like for example, Durvasa. He goes to Vishnu. He's telling, oh, my dear Vishnu, I am being chased by Sudarshan. Sudarshan is after all your weapon. Can you please withdraw this Sudarshan? And you can save me. Please do it. So Vishnu says, oh, sorry, sir. I don't know. I can't do this because I am dependent on my devotee. I don't know. I can't do this. I'm completely dependent on my devotee. So therefore, I am unable to stop this Sudarshan Chakra, even though it may be my weapon. But in this case, I am unable to stop this Sudarshan Chakra because this Sudarshan Chakra, I didn't send it. It has come on its own accord because of some trouble with Ambarish Maharaj you caused. So better you go to my devotee and you tell him that to save you. He can save you, I can't save you. So this is self-created rule. This is self-created rule. Krishna himself has declared that I am going to follow this rule. So therefore, it is a self-created rule. It is not it is not Krishna's dependence. When Krishna says these things, Aham Bhakta Paradino, he asvatantra hi dvija. So very, very funny sloka. Why? Because the very first sloka of Bhagavatam asserts his independence. He is saying Swarat. He is saying Krishna is Swarat. And what Krishna is saying, I am asvatantra. I don't have any independence. I am completely dependent on my devotee. I am Aham Bhakta Paradino. I am completely dependent on my devotee. So when we hear statements like this from Krishna, or when we see pastimes where Krishna is simply crying for the sake of milk from Yashoda, that he becomes so upset that Yashoda put him from the lap down and she went to attend the milk. So he breaks the yogurt part and then he becomes very angry. He wants to show something to his mother. I am dissatisfied with you. So he wants to create some trouble. So he takes a stone and then he breaks the yogurt part. So when Krishna does things like this, then it should be understood they are simply self-created rules. Krishna himself creates those rules. And then Krishna follows these rules. Like, for example, Krishna says that Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya chatushkitam dharma sambhavami yuge yuge. Nobody is forcing Krishna to come in every yuga. Nobody is forcing Krishna to come. And even if someone forces Krishna to come, he will not come. He can say, okay, go jump in Ganga, I will not come. He can say that. But he says that, no, I have made a rule for myself. I will come every yuga. I'll come every yuga, Yugavatar. I'll come. And then he's called Tri Yuga. And then there's big argument that whether Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Lord, is God or not. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is saying, oh, he's called Tri Yuga. He comes only in 3 yugas. He doesn't come in the 4th yuga. So how can you say that this person is God? How can you say, please think, don't be fooled, please think. You see for yourself that who he is. So therefore, Krishna creates many self-created rules and Krishna follows those rules. That doesn't make him dependent. That doesn't make him like us. We are following rules without choice. Krishna follows rules. It is his own choice. We are not following rules because it's our own choice. We are forced to follow rules. We don't have any choice. We have to follow the rules. But Krishna follows rules by his own. Today morning, when I was, every day I walk from, after attending Radha Madhava Mangalarati, I walk at the backside to go to Panchatattva Mangalarati. It's very common, many devotees do it in Mayapur. But when you walk in that corridor, which is behind Radha Madhava and Panchatattva, you find there are some nice paintings of Krishna's pastimes. And then there are 3 paintings, one after other. And when you walk from Radha Madhava to Panchatattva, they come in this order. The first painting is that Yashoda is chasing Krishna. The second painting is Krishna is running towards Bhishma and Arjuna is stopping Krishna. The third painting is Mahaprabhu is doing kirtan with all his associates. Now, today morning I was thinking, the 3 pastimes, 3 different types of mercy is visible. And all these 3 pastimes, they represent 3 different types of mercy of the Lord. The Damodar Leela pastime, it represents certain type of mercy. And Krishna's pastime with Arjuna and Bhishma, where Krishna is actually breaking his vow. It represents another type of mercy. And Krishna coming as Lord Chaitanya and distributing love of Godhead to everyone. it represents another type of mercy. And it's so nice to actually see all the three paintings one after the other. So I was just meditating. So these are all self-created rules. The Lord actually does it himself. He's not being forced to do it, but we are forced to do it. We are forced to act in a certain way. We are forced to utilize the different aspects of what Krishna has created. We cannot create anything independently. We cannot do anything independently. Prabhupada explains that very nicely. Okay, please read. Continue. Harisevini, you can continue.
All material elements as well as all spiritual sparks emanate from him only. And whatever is created in this material world is but the interaction of two energies, the material and the spiritual, which emanate from the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. A chemist can manufacture water in the chemist laboratory, but mixing hydrogen and oxygen. But in reality, the living entity works in the laboratory under the direction of the Supreme Lord. And the materials with which he works are also supplied by the Lord. The Lord knows everything directly and indirectly, and he is cognizant of all minute details, and he is fully independent. He is compared to a mine of gold, and the cosmic creations in so many different forms are compared to objects made from the gold, such as gold rings, necklaces, and so on. The gold ring and the gold necklace are qualitatively one with the gold in the mine, but quantitatively, the gold in the mine is different. Therefore, the absolute truth is simultaneously one and different. Nothing is absolutely equal with the absolute truth, but at the same time, nothing is dependent of the absolute truth.
It is independent of the absolute truth.
Oh, yes, independent of the absolute truth.
So this is the Achintya Bheda Bheda, the simultaneous oneness and difference, that everything is his energies. So in that sense, everything is actually him only, because there is no difference between the energy and the energetic. But at the same time, there is difference between the energy and the energetic. So nothing is him. We already discussed this matter, how Krishna expands into different Vishnus and how he works. So we already discussed this matter. Okay. Please move on. Please read.
Conditioned souls beginning from Brahma, who engineers the entire universe down to the insignificant ant, are all creating, but none of them is independent of the Supreme Lord. The materialist wrongly thinks that there is no creator other than his own self. This is called Maya or illusion. Because of his poor fund of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses, and thus he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape without the aid of a superior intelligence. This is refuted in this shloka by Srila Vyasadeva. Since the complete whole or the absolute truth is the source of everything, nothing can be independent of the body of the absolute truth. Whatever happens to the body quickly becomes known to the embodied. Similarly, the creation is the body of the absolute whole. Therefore, the absolute knows everything directly and indirectly that happens in the creation.
So there are different theories about how the creation happens, both the modern theory and the Vedic theory. Like, for example, the Vaisheshika theory says that there are only atoms. And ultimately, the whole creation is made possible by atoms. And how do the atoms combine? The atoms combine because there is a residual deposit of karma, which is there in the atoms. So that residual deposit of karma, which is there in the atoms, impel the atoms to come together, to bond with each other, and then manifest a certain form. And then that form actually goes through all that karma. So this is how Vaisheshika theory explains creation. Now, this is more or less like except the karma aspect and things like that. This is more or less like the modern theory of explanation, that some atoms have come in a random situation and then they have bonded themselves, and then certain manifestations happened, and those manifestations one led to the other, and then the whole creation happened. So different theories of creation, and different people are putting forward different theories of creation. Now we are reading one nice book on Mondays. Prabhupada's book is called Dialectic Spiritualism, and there Prabhupada is analyzing various philosophies, like starting from Greek philosophy, and then different Western philosophies. He's analyzing various philosophies. We just started reading, and then we are actually reading how Prabhupada is analyzing about the philosophies of Socrates, of Plato, of Aristotle, and everybody is thinking about creation. That's the most important thing. Like Socrates is thinking about it, Plato is thinking about it, Aristotle is thinking about it. These people are all thinking about creation, and everyone is saying something which they know. Each one is saying that this is something which I know, and some of them have some vague conception of God, some of them have some vague conception of knowledge. So somebody is saying God is good, somebody is saying God is not good. So there's so many different things people are saying. But the point is that we cannot try to understand everything by our effort and knowledge. It has to be understood from the supreme knower, the supreme absolute truth. So therefore, Vyasadeva is telling, let us meditate on him. Let us meditate on him. By knowing him, we can know everything. But always the conditioned soul is trying to put forward some theory, this theory, that theory, because that is the mentality, that is the enjoying mentality of the conditioned soul. And the moment he has to accept God, then he cannot put forward any theory. Then he has to accept God's theory. That is the problem. Why the scientists don't want to accept intelligent creation? The moment they accept intelligent creation, then they cannot put forward so many different theories, and they cannot say so many different things. They have to simply accept God's theory, that God created everything, and there's a purpose for it, and the purpose is to go back to Godhead. That's we should accept. We should accept. But scientists don't want to accept. They want to create their own purpose. So therefore, Krishna also nicely bewilders them. That's why it's called Mukhyantir Surayaha. Everybody is bewildered. And they are thinking that this material world is a reality, and they're trying to find that how to give godless explanation for creation. In the Vedic system also it has been tried, and the modern science also is trying. Everybody is trying, but nobody is able to succeed. Okay, in the Shruti Mantra, maybe somebody else can read. In the Shruti Mantra.
In the Shruti Mantra, it is also stated that the absolute whole, or Brahman, is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him, and everything is maintained by him. And at the end, everything enters into him. Material scientists take it for granted that that is a law of nature. In the Smriti Mantra, the same is confirmed. It is said that the source from which everything emanates at the beginning of the Brahma's millennium, and the reservoir to which everything ultimately enters, is the absolute truth, or Brahman. Material scientists take it for granted that the ultimate source of the planetary system is the sun, but they are unable to explain the source of the sun. Herein, the ultimate source is explained. According to the Vedic literature, Brahma, who may be compared to the sun, is not the ultimate creator. It is stated in this shloka that Brahma was taught Vedic knowledge by the personality of Godhead. One may argue that Brahma, being the original living being, could not be inspired because there was no other being living at that time. Herein, it is stated that the Supreme Lord inspired the secondary creator Brahma in order that Brahma could carry out his creative functions. So, the supreme intelligence behind all creations is the absolute Godhead, Sri Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna states that it is he only who superintends the creative energy, Prakriti, which constitutes the totality of matter. Therefore, Sri Vyasadeva does not worship Brahma, but the Supreme Lord, who guides Brahma in his creative activities. In this shlok, the particular words Abhigya and Swarat are significant. These two words distinguish the Supreme Lord from all other living entities. No other living entity is either Abhigya or Swarat. That is, no one is either fully cognizant or fully independent. Even Brahma has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord in order to create. Then what to speak of great scientists like Einstein? The brains of such a scientist are certainly not the products of any human being. Scientists cannot manufacture such a brain. And what to speak of foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord? Even Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves that they can become one with the Lord are neither Abhigya nor Swarat. Such impersonalists undergo severe austerities to acquire knowledge to become one with the Lord. But ultimately, they become dependent on some rich disciple who supplies them with money to build monasteries and temples. Atheists like Ravan or Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe penances before they could flout the authority of the Lord. But ultimately, they were rendered helpless and could not save themselves when the Lord appeared before them as cruel death. This is also the case with the modern atheist, who also dare to flout the authority of the Lord. Such atheists will be dealt with similarly, for history repeats itself. Whenever men neglect the authority of the Lord, nature and her laws are there to penalize them. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.7 in the well-known verse, Yada yada hi dharmasya glani. Whenever there is a decline of dharma and a rise of adharma, O Arjun, then I incarnate myself.
So we'll stop here. So here Prabhupada says one very interesting thing. He says the scientist cannot manufacture such a brain. So then one may say, no, this is not correct. We already come to the age of artificial intelligence. Prabhupada doesn't know this. Prabhupada wrote this purport long time back. There was no artificial intelligence at that time. Now we have come to the stage of artificial intelligence. So already we manufactured brain. The artificial intelligence just works like brain. So there was one very interesting experiment which was made, that an artificial intelligence was actually given some task to perform. And the artificial intelligence was trained to actually overcome any obstacle in completing the task in the most efficient way. But at the same time, there was a person who was actually controlling the artificial intelligence so that it actually works under certain parameters. So the artificial intelligence identified the person who is actually controlling the artificial intelligence as actually a constraint for it to function. And then the artificial intelligence actually devised a plan to kill that person. So technically, that person got killed, theoretically, by artificial intelligence. Of course, there was no physical killing, but the whole simulation actually showed the artificial intelligence devised a plan to kill this person because the artificial intelligence identified this person actually as a stumbling block to accomplish whatever it wants to accomplish or whatever it has been assigned to accomplish. So therefore, it is very difficult for a man to produce an intelligence which actually can think like a normal human being. It's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult. Because where the line will be crossed is, unless you keep on experimenting, you'll never know where the line will be crossed. But somewhere the line will be crossed. And it is logical for a man to know that I should not kill another man. But of course, they're saying, no, we'll rectify this. We'll make it all right. It will not kill people. Artificial intelligence will not kill people. We'll make it all right, they're saying. And of course, they may rectify it. They make it all right also. But even if you make it all right, then there'll be some other challenge which will come. So therefore, Bhagavatam says, dukkha aushadam tadapi dukkham. You try to find remedy for something, then that becomes a bigger problem. That remedy becomes a bigger problem. It's also a bigger problem. So Therefore, whatever we try to do to overcome the law of nature will always get better of us. It will always get better of us. So many attempts have been made. Previously, Ravana made some attempt, Hiranyakashipu made some attempt, Hiranyaksha made some attempt. And now scientists are making different attempts to overcome nature. But nature will always get better of us. Why? Because ultimately everything is under Krishna's control. So that control has to be accepted. Vyasadeva is asking us to accept that control. While the advancement might be bewildering, the so-called scientific advancement might be very bewildering for us, because the science is doing so many things. So therefore, the so-called scientific advancement might be very, very bewildering for us. But at the same time, one should never be bewildered by these things, because whatever is being shown as scientific advancement now has been previously done. Much more than that has been done by great demons like Hiranyakashipu and Ravana, etc. Elon Musk is still trying only to send people to Mars, but Ravana was trying to send people directly to heaven by constructing a staircase. So he had better mechanical means to do that. We cannot even approach heaven. We don't even know where is heaven, how to approach it, how to enter the realm. We don't know how to enter into the dimension. But Ravana knew he had a plan to enter into the dimension by staircase. So scientific advancement in different yugas is happening in different ways. But ultimately, we find that no scientific advancement actually helps unless we surrender to Krishna. Okay, please continue.
That the Supreme Lord is all perfect is confirmed in all Shruti mantras. It is said in the Shruti mantras that the all-perfect Lord threw a glance over matter and thus created all living beings. The living beings are part and parcel of the Lord, and he impregnates the vast material creation with seeds of spiritual sparks. And thus the creative energies are set in motion to enact so many wonderful creations. An atheist may argue that God is no more expert than a watchmaker, but of course, God is greater because he can create machines in duplicate male and female forms. The male and female forms of different types of machineries go on producing innumerable similar machines without God's further attention. If a man could manufacture such a set of machines that could produce other machines without his attention, then he could approach the intelligence of God. But that is not possible, for each machine has to be handled individually. Therefore, no one can create as well as God. Another name of God is Asamodva, which means that no one is equal to or greater than him. Param Satyam, or the supreme truth, is he who has no equal or superior. This is confirmed in the Shruti mantras. It is said that before the creation of the material universe, there existed the Lord only, who is the master of everyone. That Lord instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge. That Lord has to be obeyed in all respects. Anyone who wants to get rid of the material entanglement must surrender into him. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita.
So when it is said that the Lord existed alone, then it should not be misunderstood that he was only standing alone and nobody else was there. So the Lord only existed before creation, means he existed with his variegatedness. So it means that the spiritual world was fully manifest, the material world was not manifest. This is what should be understood as the Lord existed alone, because there are some statements directly that the Lord alone existed, Narayana alone existed, there was no Brahma, there's no Shiva, there are no demigods. There are statements like this in the Vedic literature. So it doesn't mean that Narayana is just standing alone and there is nobody there, he's looking, okay, oh, nobody is there. It's not like that. It simply means that the Lord existed with all his variegatedness in the spiritual world, and the material world, the personalities of the material, the so-called personalities of the material world, they were not existing. And when then they were created and then they all came into existence, they did whatever they had to do. So that's what is the meaning of this kind of statements. Sometimes it is said like this. Sometimes it is also said that the Lord existed and then he created the jivas for his pleasure. So it doesn't mean that there was a time when the Lord was alone and the jivas were not there, because the jivas are also anadi. They are also existing forever. The Lord is also existing forever. So forever they exist as the creator and the created. Now, how they can exist forever as creator and the created? In order to understand this, one should go to the spiritual world. If we try to speculate this matter from material world, we'll never be able to speculate this matter from the material world. Because in material world, we can only understand everything based on time. We are so strictly controlled by time factor that in the material world, without the basis of time, we cannot understand. So therefore, when the Lord's superiority and the Lord as origin is explained in the scripture explains as if there is time, but there is no time in the spiritual world. So therefore, that this difference should be understood. That in these explanations, this difference should be understood. Sometimes it is said the Lord is alone, and then he created everyone. It doesn't mean that at one point of time the Lord was alone and then he created. Then immediately we imagine like this, because our imagination is always subject to time. We cannot think without time. So therefore, these are matters which can be understood by spiritual realization. This cannot be understood by intellectual exercise. That's why Bhagavatam cannot be understood by intellectual study. Bhagavatam has to be understood by spiritual realization. To some extent, we can utilize logic, like Prabhupada uses many places logic to explain various things. Even in this purport, many times Prabhupada has used logic. Various analogies Prabhupada uses, various explanations Prabhupada uses. They are all simple logic. Up to some extent, it is useful to understand everything by using logic, by using analogies. Up to some extent, it is useful. But if you want to really understand that how the absoluteness of the absolute person works, for that, we have to be in the spiritual world. That cannot be understood in the material world, because material world is subject to time and spiritual world is not subject to time. So therefore, these things should be carefully understood, that how it is explained and what is the reality, this should be carefully understood. We should not understood these things based on some material calculation. So that's why Prabhupada says, unless one is surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, it is certain that he will be bewildered. He will be bewildered. There is no choice. Okay, we'll stop here. If there's any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna and Pranam, dear devotees. So if you have any questions from what we read today, then we can ask, raise the hand or ask Prabhuji. Prabhuji, this whole thing is very, very exhaustive. It is, to understand this whole purport is a very, very exhaustive, Prabhuji.
Yeah,
And,
sometimes take time, but it's nice to read it multiple times to try to grasp what Prabhupada is saying, because this shloka itself is quite exhaustive. It encapsulates the entire nature of the absolute truth in one shloka. So therefore, it's quite exhaustive, and it also gives comparison of the absolute person and the jivas. So the absolute person is his abhigya, his tvarat, and the nature of jiva is that he is dependent on the absolute person for receiving knowledge. So the Adi Kavi, the first intelligent person, he received knowledge from the absolute truth. And those who don't follow that system of receiving knowledge from the absolute truth by expressing dependence on the absolute truth, they are bewildered. They also have knowledge, but they are bewildered. their knowledge is inherently defective. And because of that inherently defective knowledge, they are unable to appreciate the difference between the spiritual world and the material world. They are unable to appreciate the difference between the spiritual world and the material world. And they are unable to meditate on that Supreme Person. In spite of display of so much of knowledge, they are unable to do the simple meditation on the Supreme Person. So that's a very compact explanation of the entire spiritual creation and the material creation. So therefore, definitely this purport, it needs a lot of attention. It also needs repeated reading, because many things are explained. Prabhupada explains many things here.
And also, Prabhuji, it is so nice to see so many analogies from the first verse of Bhagavatam itself. That whole Bhagavatam, though in our Bhakti Vaibhav course we see so many analogies, but that he's so expert in trying to give us that understanding through these analogies, which are, I find, very unique in our, our sampradaya or any, that some acharya has given so many analogies, Prabhuji, just to make us understand things properly.
Yeah. Prabhupada's analogies are very, they're very effective, they're very potent, and it is good to know these analogies, because it is very easy to preach if you know these analogies. Then you can always utilize analogies very much for preaching and also understanding the subject matter ourselves.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so we'll close.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So I hope everybody got spiritually enlivened by hearing from Prabhuji about this detail, word by word, line by line reading of first verse and its purport from Srila Prabhupada. So we are very, very grateful to Prabhuji. So all of us, we heartily thank Prabhuji by loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. His Grace Harilila Prabhu ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay, so we meet same time tomorrow and then we'll continue.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.